He wants us to get
Jan
going.
just said, enjoy, guys. Let's do it then. Let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do introductions first. So, in case folks didn't look at your bio, John, just do a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. John Bemis. Live up in New Canaan, Connecticut. My company is Benchmark IT. We are a IT staffing and recruiting firm based primarily. We do work primarily here in the New York City tri-state area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut. Where we really flourish is helping IT managers build their teams and get projects done. We usually, work directly with managers. We're very high touch with clients and candidates. And pre-COVID, we were very used to meeting candidates and clients in person all the time. And we work hard to have very good recruiting processes and work efficiently. We're pretty technical as far as trying to always increase efficiencies with staffing technology, and we just try to fill our positions with as few resumes as possible and with very few surprises in the whole staffing process. So for clients and candidates, make it a good experience. So that's kind of what we focus on.
I love it. I love it. So, William Tincup, president of Recruiting Daily, study HR technology and TA technology for over 20 years. Happy to be here. John and I are going to have a discussion. This session is essentially about the future, and we're going to get to the future, but we're going to start with the last year, and we're going to talk about John's firm in particular and what he's seen both personally, but also what he's talked to his peer group about in terms of kind of the 3 points of that triangle of a traditional staffing firm, your business, your clients, and your talent. And so, John, let's go through the last year real quick, and let's go, just a year from now backwards to January, February of last year. And let's talk about the changes that you've seen in your own business over the course of that year.
Sure. Well, those were January and February. Those were the good times. We were. It was very robust. We were talking about getting into the roaring 20s, and clients were hiring like crazy. I think that was probably the peak of a wave that had been building for the last 4 or 5 years in terms of just demand for IT professionals. We were certainly on a record pace. We'd had a great year the year before, and we were on pace to exceed that in the first couple months. Clients were starting to finally get the message and move faster, so they didn't lose people. Candidates were, finding positions very quickly. There were a lot of jobs out there, so we were very selective about what we worked, and we're just partnering with clients, just trying to pick the clients who would work really closely with us so we could do our job well. Candidates, it was a great candidate market too, very robust. I'd say I said at that time there was probably a job for everybody in IT. There were lots of positions. There were even manager positions starting to open up, because there was just enough expansion of companies that they just couldn't stretch those managers any further. So managers have been sitting in jobs they weren't happy with for years. Finally, we're finding new opportunities. So that started some musical chairs and some new positions for more senior level people, which was great to see. And multiple offers were happening all the time. I mean, our seems like every other position we were battling multiple offers, and we just had to be really tight with candidates all the time. So it was a good time for our team. I mean, it was a continuation of what we'd done for years. We were in the office. We've always been a come to the office every day, work together kind of staffing firm. Bullpen environment. That's what I've been doing for 20 years. Very comfortable doing that. I had people driving in 20 minutes away, an hour away. I had one guy coming up from the city on the train every day and walking like another half hour. That's how he got his steps in to get to the office every day. We used Zoom a little bit for interviews, but mostly we're kind of in person. We used Slack for instant messaging, but we didn't really need it too much because we were all in the office, so we'd just like yell at each other, and just lots of in-person interviews. So that was kind of that's how January, February, and the first part of March was.
And then everyone had to go remote on Tuesday. So
Yeah.
tell us your business and what were the changes that you needed to make for just your business itself?
When COVID hit, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, when, I mean, it was just a huge adjustment. I was actually out of town I was out in Utah when it started to get really bad in New York, and I could tell just from my team's voices that they were nervous about going into the office those last couple of days. And then I said, finally, I think it was that Friday, I said, just stay home, nobody come in, And that was the last day we were in the office. I came back to Connecticut, and honestly, I've barely been back to the office since, and most of my employees have not been back since. But it was huge for us. I hadn't worked from home more than 1 or 2 days in 20 years, probably. I just always drove to the office. So, big impact on the business. From a client perspective, a lot of stuff, a lot of our positions went on hold, went from like 20 open positions to, 6 in like 3 weeks. It was just a kind of a big pullback. Along the way during those next months, we were fortunate. Most of our consultants got to stay on, but some clients were asking for reduced bill rates. Clients, they wanted longer payment terms. You couldn't blame them. They were getting a lot of pressure too, depending on what was happening to their business. But it was what was a very robust hiring market became a very choppy market, and for candidates too. It was very frustrating.
Well, how did you manage the transition for when everyone was home? They were so accustomed to going to work, probably going out to lunch, doing all those things. So you said you used Zoom just a little bit before, you used Slack just a little bit before. What was, okay, everyone's at home now. What was those first couple of months like just from a technology adoption and kind of communication perspective?
Well, we all got, very good at Slack very fast. I'd say within a couple of weeks, that was like our favorite tool, and that was I never realized, why Slack was so good, because I didn't really need it. I was just talking to everybody in the office. But we found that it was really helpful to have that instant messaging instead of email. And and we started to do a lot more video. We started to do daily video calls. All of our interviews turned into videos. Our client visits turned into videos. So we got better at that. And then, then I saw Microsoft Teams come along. So for us, we were on Outlook, but we weren't on Office 365. So we, over the summer, made a migration to Teams. So we replaced Slack and Zoom with Teams, and now that's everybody's favorite tool. We also have
with the movement to Teams. I mean, it was obviously it was you made the decision, but how'd you how'd you go about getting everyone to buy in to moving to new tools quick into the pandemic?
Well, I think actually the move to Teams wasn't that hard. It didn't operate that differently from Slack. And
right.
And it worked fine, honestly. Once we just learned what buttons to push, it wasn't really the change management on either of those was not difficult. The more challenging one has been in terms of the phone system, because we had a PBX in the office. I never really thought about a VoIP phone system because we were all in the office, and I've never had good cell service at my house. So when I came home to work from home, it was terrible. I could barely make phone calls because our cell service in the neighborhood is bad. So I searched quickly for VoIP systems. Everybody else started to use their cell phones, and so we put in a VoIP system, and that is a little more complicated. The change management on that is a little harder because you're so used to picking up your cell. So we're still working through that.
Right.
But I mean, everybody's got the option to use it.
So. And your VoIP system integrates with Bullhorn?
Yep, we have Bullhorn. We have Cloud Call as our VoIP system, and it's very nicely integrated.
Right.
So it's just a matter of
Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. The other
Right.
thing, you know,
So let's talk about let's.
yeah.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
No, I was just going to say culturally, the uh, it's been a challenging, you know, it was a challenging summer and fall, you know, especially in the summer. I would say just everybody. It wasn't just the mechanics of working from home; it was the, you know, dealing with the pandemic and the everybody's sort of, you know, mental state. And so business is a little bit down. You're trying to do business differently. You're struggling with all these new tools, and you know, people are sick all over the place. And it was interesting times from a management perspective. You know, not only did I have to learn to manage differently because I'm not just talking to everybody every day. You know, I had to, I think, get a little bit more inspirational. I was turning to, you know, like talking in our, we went to a daily video call. So we would meet every day to try to keep the team together. I think that has really helped. I got it for a while. I got into like daily attestations, you know, every other day I'd come up with a new one, like, you know, we are a day closer to the solution. Appreciation is the core of great relationships. You know, just anything to just try to, you know, keep people's spirits up, you know, because it was a tough time. So
yeah, it's you know, the other part of that is there was, prior to that, there was an office to go to. So whatever the pilgrimage to the office was, and the pilgrimage away from the office, work was by and large, was at the office.
yes,
And you know, when you're at home doing work, there's no buffer. You know, work, you can see people kind of the mental health and wellness kind of going downhill, especially over time, because there was no way to shut that off. It's just
that's right.
work was always there.
Yeah, it's always there.
Take us. I was about to say you were going to the same place I was, John. Take us into client. How during this process, how did everything change with your relationships with clients? How did you go about that?
Well, we tried to, you know, stay as connected as possible via phone and video. But you know, when you're used to going out and seeing a good client every month and walking the halls and that sort of thing, it was a big difference. And same with the candidates. So what we tried to do was just really focus on a lot of calls and a lot of conversations. There's something about just talking to people that is, when you're in an isolated environment, that really helps. So we focused on that, you know, from an internal perspective. Our clients had to, you know, the big change. Of course, we were still filling jobs, and we ended up having an okay year, but the hiring processes had to change. I mean, clients, I don't think we'd ever had more than one hire off of a video interview before. Maybe that was a remote person. Now, all of a sudden, all of our local clients had to go to a different mode of interviewing, no more coming in person. So that was a struggle for the clients to learn how to do it. It was a struggle for the candidates to learn how to do it. So that was a big change. We found that we really had to prep candidates for video interviews. A lot of people had never done one. We had one funny story where I was actually involved in this one. We got on a three-way with the candidate, and he turns on his Zoom, and his picture was totally upside down. So it's like, okay, I think we need to fix this before you talk to the client. Yeah, so I don't even know how he did that, but he did it, and we managed to get it right, and he actually got the job offer. So that was good. So a lot of adjustments. Clients had to learn to, you know, to do it as well.
And new business with clients. You know, normally you would, you know, obviously pitching new business is probably never been difficult for you. How do you pitch new business, or how have you pitched new business through the pandemic?
Most of it has been through leveraging relationships that we have, and you know, leveraging them more than even before. Probably, what we have experienced is, you know, not only are managers not at their desks, they're even harder to reach by phone than even before, even if you have their cell or whatever. It seems like the managers have more meetings than ever before. I mean, client burnout is a real thing for sure. And all our consultants are reporting that they're in more meetings than ever before. So hard to reach people by phone, hard to reach people by email because they're inundated with email more than ever before, I think. So we've just been really trying to leverage relationships and get introductions from one person to another. And that's been what's working. And then, of course, trying to set up a video call to have an introduction. And I'm finding that clients at first were a little bit nervous to get on video calls because I don't think it was as much of a thing. We had clients using Teams, but they wouldn't turn on the video. They just they were just all audio. And I think people have gotten a little bit more used to dealing on video in the last year. And so now when we get introduced to a new client, it's usually not a struggle to get them on a video call for the first call and start to build a little bit of a face-to-face relationship instead of just a phone call.
That helps. That helps. It's funny because at first it was awkward, like to see someone's background and the cats walking around and dogs and interruptions and all that other stuff. Now we're accustomed to it. I mean, not only do we see it on TV, but we even see it in the calls that we have, right? Regular calls that we have. I'll have people that will ask me about paint. I'll ask them about books on their bookshelf. It transcends into, like we can now talk about the business at hand, which we'll obviously get to that. But I love that about, being able to, first kind of deal with the shock and awe of what was going on with your clients and being flexible. You've said that in the past with me, being able, what they're going through. You're going through some of the same things, but long-term relationships are based on that flexibility. Like, okay, hey, we know what's going on. You need to slow hiring down, or you need to work out a new payment program. Like, again, the short thinking would be, okay, well, we're not going to be flexible. The long-term thinking is, you know what, this has been a client for 10 years, or be another client for another 10 years. This is the time to be flexible, right?
Yeah.
So we're going to go back and forth between your business. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. So we also even got a little bit more flexible about what we would work on over the summer. We would work on, let's say, an electrical engineer position for a client instead of just software engineer. Whatever the client really wanted our help on, we would help on. So, we definitely got more flexible. So which has helped, float the boat.
So take to the other part of your business in dealing with candidates and dealing with, getting your candidates ready, again, using different technologies, interacting with them differently than you have in the past, interacting with your clients different. But tell us a little bit about what you've gone through over this last year with just your candidates and the talents that you deal with.
I think that aside from physically not being able to be with them, I think what we've learned is that it's even more important than ever to stay in touch with people and get back to them. Candidates are also more isolated than ever. As the hiring process has slowed down, I mean, we were seeing, 2 and 3 weeks delays while the, client tried to figure out what they were going to do next. So, and of course, candidates are used to not hearing very much from their online applications and everything else. But when the real hiring process slowed down, then we really have to, talk to them and keep them apprised any way we can. So that was definitely has been a big thing. And as I said, trying to stay engaged overall. Sending emails to people that we just, if we don't have time to call them, let's send an email. Keep in touch with people. So we use some of our technology. We're a Herefish customer. We use Herefish to automatically keep in touch with someone if it's been too long since we've had a chance to really pick up the phone and call them. And they appreciate those emails, and that starts a dialogue sometimes that is really good for both of us, so both the candidate and us. So there's ways to do it, but we've just tried to stay even more engaged.
Right. And them getting over the hump of video interviews, obviously you would have people come into the office, you'd go through, you'd prep them, etc. And that it still really isn't readily available to folks. So getting them over that hump of not being, not necessarily being able to shake your hand, but also then getting them ready for the client. What did your team, what was that process to go through with your team of just getting the candidates, past any insecurities that they might have had with not being able to shake people's hands, not being in the same room, not being able to tour the facility or whatever, like all that stuff that we've gotten used to. What did y'all do to kind of get them over any kind of insecurity? That's probably not the right word, but just dealing with the ambiguity that the unknown, and then potentially taking a job with a company where they've never quote unquote, met the people that they've worked for.
That's right. Well, everybody knows, you got to prep the candidates, and we definitely have done a lot of candidate prep, but even in this environment now, you really have to prep your clients and make sure that they are, if not selling, at least explaining a lot more about the place and about the job opportunity and the what's in it for the candidate, than ever before. Because typically the candidate it was sort of an acceleration of information as you'd go through the interview process from phone to in person. You'd learn a lot more when you'd go in person. Well, now you're not going in person, so you've got to, every impression. Of course, the candidate makes an impression on every video call, but so does the client. And tech unemployment really didn't go up that much, so candidates are still pretty choosy, and clients need to put their best foot forward now in video. So it might be, we have to ask the candidate, make sure we know what their concerns are and what they want to know, and we have to make sure the client speaks to that in the interview. So we spend a lot more time, I would say, prepping the client after we've prepped the candidate, and hopefully there'll be enough good information exchange both ways that they get all the information they need.
I love that. I love it. Philip Miller asked the question. We're going to get to this, but I think it's a good way to kind of start the process. Is, do you think going into the office is a thing of the past? So I know into this
we're definitely going to
in
get
terms
into
of talking
that.
about your business.
I could say what office?
But we'll use Philip's question to get us there.
Aren't I in the office now? I think I'm already here.
You are.
Yeah. No. We could definitely segue, if you want to, into current state and future if you want.
Let's do that.
Okay. All right. Great. Well, we're pretty optimistic that that this is going to be a good year. From a where are we going to do it from standpoint, I think we're going to continue to be remote, or mostly remote, until it's really, really, really safe to go outside and to engage with a lot of other people. We've found that we can do our jobs quite well. Now, we're a senior team. I don't have any brand new people on my team right now, so I'm not doing basic training yet. But the senior recruiters have all the tools now they need to do the job well. And until it's really safe to go out, I'm not going to ask them to go in because I don't want anybody to feel uncomfortable. I spent $800 putting up plexiglass back in September, thinking things were getting better, and then they got worse. So I don't know if I'll ever take the plexiglass down, but it looks nice, but never used it. I think what we're going to have to, the unknown is really what the benefit's going to be when, if we were to be back in the office. How much are we missing from a brainstorming perspective, from a cultural perspective, we still meet almost every day on video, but a lot of us haven't seen each other in a year now almost. So I think if once it's safe to go out, I'm thinking maybe we try, since we're mostly all within driving distance or train distance, we might try doing one day in the week, a week together, just to see what that's like, and try it for a few weeks and see if people really like it. Maybe everybody will really enjoy working together, and that'll be a plus for them. And if it's a plus for them, it's a plus for the company. Maybe we'll bring in a different kind of lunch every time we do that, just to make it fun. But we're not spending much money entertaining elsewhere right now. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. We want to keep putting in tools to make the whole team more efficient, and help do a better job. We just put in a client portal to help keep, when we work on jobs with a client, now the client's got a portal. They can see all the resumes we sent for all the jobs we sent in one place, instead of having them strewn through their increasingly crowded inbox. So that's a new thing we've just put in, which I think is going to help us going forward and as clients get busier. So I've got to decide this year what to do with my office. My lease is up at the end of the year. I've got a nice office, big open plan office. I just don't know. Time will tell. Hopefully we'll get to the point where we can experiment a little bit, and I'll be able to make sort of an informed decision. But if I had to bet right now, I'd say we'll probably give up that space and find some sort of, Regis or WeWork kind of space where we can have enough space when we want to have meetings or want to have a client or candidate come in, have a gathering place, have an address, but not go there every day. That's kind of what I'm thinking we might end up.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
It's interesting because some people, most people have kind of pontificated about a hybrid model of work and workplace, and the way that they foresee that is basically based on what are the needs of the clients that we serve, or the customers that we serve, and how do we need to work in the future. But also there's how do our employees want to work now that for a year we've sped up some things that probably were already there that we're going to be sped up, but we sped some things up, and we've also gotten used to. I mean, I think, John, you haven't been to the office that many times since you kind of closed it down. How different would it be for you to then say, okay, I'm going to be in the office 5 days a week? And so some of that is like we've gotten used to, employees have gotten used to work a certain way. So one of the things I think there's going to be a factor for all staffing firms is to also figure out you still got to service your clients, you still got to service your talent, and you've got your employees. So you're in that servicing business. What's the best model? Like, I don't think there's going to be one model that dominates. I think it's going to be staffing firm by staffing firm that says, you know what, we'll take that 10,000 square feet, reduce it down to 1, make it a hoteling, office suite with just a bunch of conference rooms, or office with just a bunch of hoteling space, and that's going to be our new work environment. And those that want to go into the office, I mean, you and I are a little bit older. Staffing in the city, and she has 5, so 2 of them in diapers. Right. She wants to go to the office. First of all, she's an extrovert. So I should caveat this just a bit. She's an extrovert, so she's missing being around people, but she wants that separation between work and office, so that the office and go do those things. So it's going to be kind of an interesting transition back once once everyone's vaccinated, etc. Once we have the ability to transition back, it is going to be interesting to see how staffing companies approach those models differently.
Right, and especially for training new hires. The traditional model for most staffing firms is, bring a new hire into an office, surround them with experienced people, let them hear what everybody else is doing, and give it your best. Well, that's really difficult to do in this remote environment. So I read a very interesting article on your website about a company that is doing it, and creating where everybody turns their camera on, and you can in effect listen in on other people's calls, and using call shadowing and other techniques, which we have, but so we haven't I think the tools are there to do it, but it'll for those that haven't done it before, it's going to be a challenge.
Like we talked about this the other day, that training is going to be very interesting, because the way that we've trained traditionally, that indoctrination of once we all find somebody, we onboard them, we drop them deep into the pool, they listen, they go through we teach them the universe of no's, and how to, on both sides, how to work with clients and really manage expectations, do that with candidates and how. And you and I have been kind of grown up in experiences where people just learn from being in the room, and listening to other people talk on the phone and hear one side of that conversation. And a lot of our training has been that type of training, which is, there's no knock on that training. That's how a lot of people have been successful. Now, if people aren't in the office or not as frequently, we're going to have to rethink staffing training. We're going to have to especially new hire, someone that's done the bit for 20 years, it's a bit different. New hire staffing training, we're going to have to rethink that from start to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we've brought on 3 new people since COVID, and all remote, but they all had experience in the business. So that's been kind of what I've been looking for. But what I did was I had them. I split up their training, and there were pieces that I might have done the old way. I might have taken them in the conference room and spent an hour. Now what I did is I had various team members get on a Teams call with them for an hour and work on a piece of the model, work on learning Bullhorn, work on learning, whatever pieces of our tech that we have, and learn our processes, and in so doing, build a little of that relationship with the rest of the team. So I think it's worked pretty well. It's been successful so far.
Katika ask, and please, if I mispronounce your name, please help me with that. But I love your question. Customers are getting phone calls. Shocking. Do you think you would be willing to meet in person once things go back to normal? We'll use air quotes for normal, because I think that's what she meant. The reticence, will clients have the reticence to meet either candidates, talent, or even yourself? You might take clients out to dinner, or take them to a ball game, or whatever you do to really kind of meet with clients and do things with clients. Do you think that they'll have a reticence? Do you think that will be there, or as a barrier for your clients?
Well, I think it's going to be a little bit more. I think we have client relationships already. Those people, they're going to want to go see you, and we'll go meet them where they are. We've got a lot of clients who their offices are closed indefinitely. They're working from home, but once and I've already done a couple of lunches and dinners, but I know that once it's safer to go out, we won't have any trouble getting back in front of our clients. But we'll go meet them where they are. In the meantime, we'll do video calls with them, with new clients, and the reason to go see a new client is typically to build a relationship and to see the work site and see, so you can sell the job properly and represent the job properly. So a lot of it's going to depend on if the work site is, we used to say we won't take an order unless we can go to see the site. Well, now what if the manager's not going in because the place is not open? Well, then we'll just do a video interview. I think we'll do a video call. Then we'll say we need to meet you, because I need to know you, and I need to tell my candidates about you and your team. So it'll be a mix depending on the situation. And long term, I think people like dealing with people, and I think we'll see people start to get together again.
What do you think about candidates that are now getting used to either remote or maybe even Indeed's, I think, number one, we talked about it, the number one search phrase is remote work. Maybe now they're getting, no, I wouldn't say addicted, but maybe they see the possibility of, I don't have to live in San Francisco. I don't have to live in the city for that job. I can live in South Dakota and still do the job. What do you think about that as a trend going forward? Like remote work got pushed upon us because of COVID, but now candidates are asking more about remote work. In fact, they're searching for jobs based on remote work. Do you see that
Sure.
as something that'll kind of come back to us, or do you think that that's kind of something that's here to stay?
I think that's the single biggest change in the whole industry, and I think there's going to be a lot of remote hiring over the next couple of years. Um, because they have to right now, but also, I, I unless we find out, you really find out that the remote workforce is not as effective. But it's, in tech especially, where it's so hard to find people. It's so hard to find people in any given place. It was so expensive to move people to the Bay Area, so I mean, these tech workers can sit at home and do their job quite well. So I really think that we're going to see a lot of it. I think clients, I've got clients right now that are like, well, we want people back on site when we reopen. And I'm like, well, what about right now? You're trying to hire a software engineer now. So do you want somebody that's remote? Do you want them to promise and make sure they're going to relocate to be on site? I mean, clients have to be decisive now if they want to hire. They at least have to make a commitment for, the next couple of years for this person. Tell us what you want. You want a remote? Are you open to remote? Or you really want somebody who's local or will definitely relocate to come in because you want your team all back on site. Some companies got a fairly big client here that is just insistent that they get everybody back in the office. So, for those, as long as they just make a decision, fill the job.
Yeah, that's going to be interesting because there's going to be people that don't want to work for that company in the future because of because of the appearance of inflexibility, which is probably not true. It's just, people, they like being in the office. They want everybody to be in the office. Probably have a nice office. They probably spend a lot of time, money, and energy in making it a nice office. And some of this is, John, some of this is, I think we touched on it the other day. This has been kind of a part and parcel. The culture of the office. You go in, you have coffee, you talk about, sports or whatever. You talk to your clients, you talk to talent, you kind of work your bits. And this is, to lunch, you might go out to drinks afterwards. A part of what we've considered culture has been the office. And when you take that away, well, what is culture?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and whether it's through a client company or your own staffing company, it's definitely something you got to consider. And I mean, we've had, and our clients have had, I think, a very minimal amount of HR issues since everybody went remote. I mean, yes, you miss the company culture, but you also don't have like people getting in cat fights and annoying each other and everything else because their action is in small parts.
Somebody stole my lunch, John. Who stole my lunch?
Yeah, that's right. Who left that in the fridge? Who put that in my trash can? So
great.
That person's following me to the bathroom again.
Yeah. Krista and Wes both have two great questions. Let's try on Krista's first. What do you think will happen with pay salaries with remote work? Clients lowering salary in San Francisco or keeping them the same, or etc. Like, what do you think from a staffing perspective, about location-based pay? What do you think will be kind of this near term and also in the future? What do you think that looks like? Great question, Krista.
That's a very good question. And I've been, obviously it's in the news every week. It seems there's some article about people fleeing the Bay Area, and moving to Boise and still making the same money they made. The one data point I had is there was a Connecticut company that we had here, a bank, who decided instead of having everybody here, they were going to move a bunch of people down south. And when they made that move and they offered people the chance to be remote or to move to this other location, they actually did, reduce the salaries in commensurate with cost of living. And that went with the offer. And some people, it didn't sit well with some, and it sat well with others. But the client took that approach that part of the reason we're doing this is to move into a lower cost area. I could see clients taking that same approach with remote work or with different locations, only because the only reason you pay so much in San Francisco, well, it's partly demand, but it's also partly the cost of living. If you're going to let people work from a place where the cost of living is less, I think the clients are going to try to pay a fair wage to whatever the candidate will take. It's the moving the people from the high salaries to lower salaries that's the tricky part, I think. For new hires, you just have to talk about people's expectations and make them an offer that they'll accept. So I think it's less of a problem with new hires. And I think companies should be able to.
I'm going to go out.
We're here in the New York area. I was just saying, we're in the New York area, so this is a pretty expensive place to live relatively. I imagine as we start to fill, if clients want to let us fill jobs with remote candidates, we'll probably come up with some savings for them in some cases. Unless the perfect candidate is in San Francisco, in which case it might be more expensive.
So I've got a hot take on this, John, and you'll probably not like it, but I don't believe. I think a location-based pay has been outed as essentially how we've gotten to pay inequities, or a part of the way that we've gotten to pay inequities. And if we're just paying for the job, like, to make it fair, paying for the job is paying for the job, regardless of where they choose to live. So if you choose to live in Tokyo or Sydney or Manhattan, that's a choice. And I know people will then say, well, my family's there and this, that, and the other. Well, yeah, true, fair choice. And so if you want to make things fair and equitable, then you take location-based pay out of it, and you make it about the job. What are you doing? You're writing 400 lines of code today? Great. Whether or not you can do that in Scarsdale or Scottsdale doesn't make a difference. Code. And I think that's hard. I mean, especially the way that we've grown up, because we've associated, well, if you live in LA, it's so expensive to live in LA. Well, why do you live in LA? There's plenty of other places to live that are not expensive. So it's a hot take. I wouldn't say that it's a take that a lot of people are happy with. Challenges the status of, well, there's a reason that we pay people differently. Well, a part of that reason that we pay people differently is we're also paying we're hiding inequities with race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. We're hiding some of those inequities inside location-based pay. It's not totally there. There's other reasons and other ways that we hide those inequities, but I think if you strip all that back and you just basically make it the job 10 years of experience doing this bit is this band of pay, regardless of where you work or where you live. I think you can make that transparent, and again, you can highlight where inequities are and then fix the inequities. So it's not necessarily a sanctioned opinion for the summit, but I have a hard take on location-based pay. So we'll leave that there.
All right.
And discuss that later offline.
I saw an interesting question.
We did have some other.
Yeah, I saw the question.
Oh, go ahead. Good, because I did too.
The question about are we seeing pressure from clients that believe there's a surplus of talent out there? Absolutely, and it's a total misconception. I hear about 100%. A few layoffs, and they think that all of a sudden there's just hundreds of candidates to choose from. We're battling that constantly, but thankfully through TechServe, our industry association and other statistics, you can show, the fact that unemployment in IT is actually quite low and did not shoot up to anywhere near the average unemployment rate. So you just have to battle that with facts. But it's definitely, we see it in every little downturn. Oh, all these people are out of work. So
yeah.
I wish that was the case. I would
it also
have a lot more candidates to give to my clients.
Yeah, exactly. I think that because we're talking about all staffing firms, depending on where you staff, right? You're staffing IT, and that's what your firm's known for. You saw very little dip, and we went from a candidate-driven market in say late 19, early 20. To an employer-driven market for a lot of industries and for a lot of positions, but not yours. Yours, saw maybe a little bit of a dip, kind of more of a, what's going on type of dip, and the talent is still a candidate-driven market.
Still pretty good. I mean, I will say,
so
I mentioned earlier, I was just going to say the candidates, some, there was definitely some pain post-COVID. I mean, some of our consulting workers were asked to work less hours. There were less projects at the client, but the client didn't want to let the person go, so they had to, maybe instead of working 40 hours, they had to cut back to 20 or 30 hours for a while. I've heard some of my peers in the industry had clients come and demand bill rate cuts. So you had a lot of clients and staffing firms had to decide, is any job better than no job? For a while, what are we going to do? And how do we deal with this pressure?
Right.
How do we deal with this pressure that should be temporary because it's caused by this weird thing called a pandemic, and it's not a permanent it's not a long-term economic dislocation or trend. So there have been a lot of interesting conversations, and personally, I've been happy to have my TechServe, peers to bounce those off of in our monthly roundtables and see how different people are handling it.
So while you were looking at John's question, I was looking at Wes's question. So let me pitch that to you. Thoughts on internal retention and attraction of new talent going forward with so many large organizations putting a stake in the ground and smaller brick and mortar remote opportunities for competitors. What will be 100% remote? So let's do that twofold, John. Let's do that both. Yeah. Let's do the agency side as well as talent side. Okay.
Well, I think I kind of covered it on the client side. I really do think there's going to be a lot of remote opportunities, and on the if you'd have talked to me a year and a half ago, I would have said, "What? Me hire a remote recruiter like in Iowa? No way. How would that work?" And now I'm like, bring it on. I just hired a recruiter who's doing great, who's like 30 miles away, but in our commuting New York terrible commute we have here, it's like an impossible commute. You would never want to do it. But he's come on board. If we do the 1 day a week thing, I think he'll be okay with it. We wouldn't want to commute every day to the office, but so there's definitely opened up opportunities for us. What other pieces were part of that question?
I think you've handled it. You did it both on the client side and the talent side. I think we hit remote. Rajiv has a question that I think would be really good for us to tackle. It's what is the impact of the MSP, VMS, and the future of staffing firms going forward? So what do you think? Because with those technologies, obviously they're gaining a lot of traction and helping firms, especially procurement, be able to standardize staffing contracts, et cetera. And then most of the world kind of hit pause. What do you think that world looks like going forward?
Well, my what I've seen over the past 10 years or so is sort of a plateauing of the penetration of VMS. I mean, they definitely are in all the big accounts for the most part. And a huge percentage of the big accounts have VMS. I was worried for a
Right.
while of how low or how small, would you start to see VMS in mid-sized companies? That hasn't really happened. I think there's a certain point at which it's too expensive to put a person on site or whatever. So, will the VMSs really ever get down into the next level of there's got to be enough volume there for it to make sense for a Beeline or a Field Glass or even
Right.
for a client. So that's what I've seen. The other thing that's really impacted parts of the staffing business is the rise of talent acquisition, and so many companies have built strong talent acquisition teams to work on their full-time jobs. So for staffing firms that did a lot of full-time and contract, that's another thing that we've been working with. But we've tried to partner with the TA people, and usually it's the IT positions that they struggle with the most. So we try to make sure we're there with them and partnering where they need us. But VMS, I kind of feel like in our industry, you're either going to be a VMS focused staffing firm, or you're going to be a direct with manager kind of staffing firm. It's just such a different experience. I do personally feel that there are some opportunities for VMSs to make it a better experience for their vendors. With video, I mean, you could spend more time. These manager calls could be better than they've ever been. Feedback could be a lot better. Somebody's just got to really want to make it better. And so far, I haven't really seen that across. But we're not a big VMS player, so I know there's a lot going on in the VMS space that I'm not exposed to. So I focus, we flourish on a direct relationship. So, and I think that's we're going to stay in our lane as long as it works.
Right. And which Rajiv asked an interesting question. I think now knowing what you know, would you build a staffing firm that or niche?
Niche.
Yeah. I assume so, but
I don't think there's any end to the. I don't think there's any end to the rate pressure that you get into when you're in a volume situation. So
it's commodities. It's not commodities at that point.
It's not getting any. It's a commodity, and I don't think people are a commodity, and I don't think good recruiting is good recruiting and is good recruiting, and there's a place for it. I'll just leave it at that.
Right. So the last thing is for the rest of 21, I'm going to give you a magic wand. Okay. You don't get to keep it. I get it back at the end of the session, but I'm going to give you a magic wand, and I want to give you one wish for your business, for your clients, and for the talent that you deal with. And one wish each. Let's go through each of those wishes. What's the wish that you have for your own business?
Oh God, you should have told me about this question. I'm just terrible on the spot.
You're fine.
Well, the wish for my business is that we do have a nice bump up from last year, and that all my team members have a good experience and they all have a good year. That's we're just a collection of individuals working together every day, and I want them all to be happy and take care of their clients and candidates and families. So I want I want us to be able to get out by mid-year for candidates, clients, and I want us and for all three parts of the triangle, I want us to be able to get out and see people again. And for clients, I want them to. It's going to be tough for clients because this whole where are they going to work thing is a big deal. We can keep going remote, but some of our bigger clients, it's going to be really interesting how they work. So I'm just hoping for economic expansion overall. My magic wand is, I hope that we'll have expansion that raises all the boats. I hope that I'll see maybe, some continue to see more recruiting technology come in that is reasonably priced, new mousetraps that'll help us do our job more effectively, whether it's AI or other tools to make the business run better for our clients and candidates, create better connections, more transparency. I look forward to those. So I'll keep the wand, by the way. I like it a little bit more.
and my wish is that you keep doing the inspirational quotes no matter what. That stays with us. It goes forward no matter what goes on with the business. More inspirational quotes. Folks, this has been a wonderful. An hour has blown by. John has broken down and given us a bunch of wisdom, a bunch of things to think about. We need to get you all on to your next session. So thank you so much for showing up to ours. But also we've got to make sure to be respectful of the next session. John.
Thanks, William. Keep in touch. Thanks, everybody.
Absolutely. Take care, everyone. Thank you, and get on with the next session, and let's all have a great day.
Awesome. Take care.